post. He's out. William on the drive. Pull up. Got it!
A grand slam for Masters. Witherspoon in the corner, on the way and good.
More big hit in him. A bomb.
Shapen, wide open, caught across the middle. Thompson, touchdown! Mississippi State, the national champions.
Wrap it in maroon and white.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Breakdown presented by the Bulldog Student Sports Network, where we cover Mississippi State athletics from a student perspective. This is episode 7, and my name is Connor Davis alongside my co-host Ty Golmon, and it's finals week. Finals week is coming up. You doing okay in your finals? Are you stressing out a little bit? Because this might pretty well be our last show.
Yeah, it could be our last show until after Christmas, so yeah, nervous a little bit about finals, but hey, everybody gets a little bit nervous about finals. Nothing that a good bit of studying can't fix, though.
Oh, no, and we get to kind of go on and do a couple sports and cover them, but this will be our final show for the semester. We will come back after Christmas time. January hits. We'll hit it hard with basketball. It'll be conference basketball just about at that time, so we'll have a lot on the plate, but we usually start off with some other sports. We usually have soccer and volleyball, then basketball, football. But today we're going to start off hot. We're going to start off with football. So let's go. It was the 122nd meeting all time for Mississippi State and Ole Miss, but the 98th version of the battle for the Golden Egg last Friday on November 28th. Hope everyone had themselves a good Thanksgiving, because if you're a Mississippi State fan, there's not a lot to be thankful for if you watch this game. State lost 38-19 against Ole Miss, but there's some hope for the future. Kamario Taylor had 351 total scrimmage yards with 2 rushing touchdowns, and a pick to go along with it. Lane Kiffin also gone from Ole Miss as he accepted the vacant coaching job at LSU. Mississippi State fans, they had a pretty good Thanksgiving weekend with this news. So What'd you take from that game?
Well, just talking about the Lane Kiffin drama, I mean, yeah, that was exciting as a Mississippi State fan. But more importantly, though, it was frustrating to lose the game to Ole Miss. I think, State played well overall. Just in the first half, I thought State did a good job at least maintaining or holding on with Ole Miss. Ole Miss, that early scoring drive to start the game, took only about 4 or 5 plays, and they marched right down the field. State ends up actually starting from their own 3, and they drive the length of the field 97 yards, and Kamario Taylor runs it in for 6. Couple teams, Ole Miss had a touchdown as well again, and then it was a close ball game at halftime, and then Ole Miss just kind of ran away with it late. One thing, or a couple things I looked at, Kamario did a really, really good job running the football, was your leading rusher in the ball game, so thought he played well. On the flip side, though, maybe didn't throw the ball as well, and that's something that maybe hurt Mississippi State, I think, in the ball game. State really inefficient in throwing the football, and just part of that with Kamario is this is his first, it's his first start, and it's his first, whole bunch of minutes playing in an SEC game. So I don't really worry about that too much, at least in terms of the future, but I will just concede that it did hurt Mississippi State really in that ball game offensively. State did run the football well, but just couldn't really back it up passing the ball. Also, too, you had a bunch of drives that ended, or at least 2 drives that were really important for Mississippi State there in the middle of the ball game that ended in field goals. That last drive of the second half ended in a field goal, and then I believe last drive of the first half ended in a field goal, and I believe the first drive of the second half ended in a field goal as well. State moved down the field, unable to score touchdowns on those. Those were huge. In the middle of the game, Ole Miss really didn't score as much offensively. Weren't able to score. State did a good job defensively. But to back that up for Ole Miss, defensively they played, I thought, a really, really sound game. Gave State a lot to deal with. Really covered State's receivers well. State was able to move, but when State got deeper into Ole Miss territory, State just wasn't able to do as much, ended up having to kick some field goals. Ultimately, that led to Mississippi State falling short in the ball game, and also defensively, State just did not have a great day. They haven't had a lot of great days over the course of the last couple of ball games of the season. gave up over 500 yards to Ole Miss in the game, and of course 38 points.
Well, I was going to take some notes, kind of talk about it. There's a little bit of inexperience there for Kamar Taylor for sure. You have to start in arguably Jeff Lebby's biggest game of his coaching career, I would say, against Ole Miss here in Starkville, Mississippi. It's the second straight Egg Bowl we've started a true freshman at quarterback. Of course, MVB last year, and then this is the sixth true freshman to start at QB since 1989. So Taylor's 173 rushing yards in this game is the most rushing yards Ole Miss has allowed in a game since Nick Fitzgerald in 2016. So we see how good Nick Fitzgerald was on the run for Mississippi State, and then you see how well Camario has been. But you got to throw it a little bit better. But you look at the flip side, defense. You allowed 545 total yards of offense against Ole Miss. Although the score said differently, this really was a pretty comparable game. Like, a lot of stats were super similar. Ole Miss over 31 minutes of time of possession. Mississippi State over 28. So you really didn't have the ball too much more than Mississippi State if you're Ole Miss. But Ole Miss just decided to capitalize and play more complete. At the end of the day, that's what happened. So how do you end up winning ball games if your defense is giving up 545 yards of offense?
Well, I mean, it's really tough to. I mean, you have to outscore teams. I mean, that's what State had to do in the Arkansas game, where they outscored Arkansas, had the final touchdown at the end to win that ball game. But outside of that, it's really tough to ask your defense, or ask your offense, to go out and score 38 points, right? Or at least over 38 points, seeing that Ole Miss scored 38 points in the ball game. Really tough to ask that from your offense. But also, too, I can come back at that and say, in the middle of the ball game, when the defense played really well and was forcing some Ole Miss punts, a couple 3-and-outs there in the middle of that ball game.
You didn't capitalize.
You didn't capitalize offensively. So, it's not like you didn't have, favorable field position when they punted the ball back to you. You ended up getting it, between the 25 and the 15, I believe. Most of those drives where Ole Miss punted the ball back to you in the middle of that ball game right there. Mostly the second quarter. Ole Miss did not score until the end of the second quarter a touchdown. So in those middle drives of the second quarter and in the first quarter, really the end of the first quarter, State had a lot of opportunities to go and score the football. They weren't able to do it. Especially that last drive of the first half. You drive down the field. I believe we got to the 22-yard line and we didn't move any further. Ended up having to kick a field goal, which, good on Kyle Ferry for kicking that and making it. But then right after that, defense just allows Ole Miss to drive right down the field, and that was a big momentum shift in the football game as Ole Miss took, I believe, a 10-point lead into halftime, or I think it was 17 to. They took a 2-possession lead in halftime. Can't quite remember what the score was, but took a 2-possession lead in halftime, flipped a lot of momentum. Overall, though, yeah, it's just tough to expect your offense to have that same kind of output, especially against an Ole Miss defense who has been really, pretty good this season in terms of they really probably weren't expected to be as good this season just because of what they lost last year in terms of in the NFL draft. But, they got a lot of good guys up front. It showed in this one. They had a couple sacks and some pressures in the ball game. So, it's tough for your offense to really score and have the same output that Ole Miss had in that ball game offensively. So it doesn't help when your defense allows that much points, that many points, and that many yards.
No, and when we talk about inexperience, I think you can also attribute that to the coaching staff as well. This is Jeff Lebby's first head coaching gig in the entire country, so he's got a lot to learn, and Lane Kiffin's been around the block. But the difference between the two, as we were watching it, and I said it a couple times, I believe, on the broadcast, when Lane Kiffin coaches football, he gives his quarterback every option on the football field. And when you design plays like Jeff Lebby does, where you have your quarterback you have your line roll out to the right with your quarterback, you're not giving your quarterback options because you're designing a play where he's got to stay in the pocket, where the line's rolling right, like that 2-point conversion play that we called, that we missed, where it was a design play. And a lot of that is because it was Kamario's first start. So I get that. But what makes Lane Kiffin's offense so good is he gives his quarterback that many options. If Jeff Lebby can somehow do that for Camario in the future, I think we have a pretty good quarterback on our hands.
Well, I think now as we, now move into the future part of Mississippi State after this year, one thing that you're going to have to do if you want to be able to, give him a chance offensively is you're going to have to go out and improve your offensive line, who has struggled this season. That offensive line has not been very good at all. So, and that's something that, if we compare it with Ole Miss a good offensive line this season. They went out and got some talent. They've recruited some talent. So if you're State, you got to go out and battle to get some guys in the trenches, both in your high school recruiting and most importantly, probably in your portal. I think that's where State can make a lot of gains and a lot of strides. I see no problem with Mississippi State getting some skill guys in the portal. State's done it 2 years in a row, been able to get some skill guys out of the portal that have really helped Mississippi State. I think State does a good job in evaluating skill position talent. In terms of halfback, you had Fluff Bothwell. And then this past year, Brennan Thompson and Anthony Evans. You also had, Kevin Coleman was one guy that came in last year in Jeff Lebby's first year that made a real difference. Also, Devon Booth has had 2 good years here at Mississippi State. But the most important thing is you've got to build the trenches big time in order to have some success offensively. I think State can. We saw a lot of that, a lot of the dual threat ability of Kamario Taylor in that ball game, being able to score 2 rushing touchdowns in the game for Mississippi State. He scored the only 3 touchdowns in the game for Mississippi State against Georgia. He scored a lot this year, has been good running the football, at least building around him. Got to build inside the trenches, and it goes the same way on defense too.
Oh, and I agree. And if we're looking towards the future before the transfer portal gets into effect, we have a little bit of time before that opens up. It's National Signing Day. So there's a lot that's happened. We signed a lot of people today, and you got a big recruit to flip. You got Womack to flip, safety out of Mississippi, who was committed to Auburn, and then he came and said, "Hey, I'm going to play for Jeff Lebby at State." But it wasn't just Jeff Lebby. His words were, "I believe what Jeff Lebby's building, but I believe in the leader that Kamario Taylor is becoming and somebody that I want to work with for this football team." So you have that piece on your football team. Kamario Taylor is a big part of it. We look to the future. Other than trenches, what do you have to say when it comes to the recruiting and then so on and so forth for the young guys?
Well, I think we did a good job. Obviously, flipping Braylon Womack was huge. You got a guy you mentioned out of Mississippi, I believe Hartfield Academy, so was committed to Auburn for the longest time. And then Auburn ended up re-signing DJ Durkin back, or bringing DJ Durkin back, their defensive coordinator. A lot of people thought that with new head coach over there, Alex Golesh, that they wouldn't. He ends up coming back, but that still didn't distract Womack. He still stays home here in the state of Mississippi, goes to Mississippi State. You mentioned that. Kamario's got a lot of pull with a lot of these in-state guys. We ended up signing his brother as well, also in this class. So, he's got a lot of pull. Great to see as such a young player. He means so much to this team, and he's a guy that loves Mississippi State. But just in general, I think a lot of these guys believe in what Lebby's building. There's been some consistent success, right? You go 2-10 the first year, 5-7 the second year, so some continuing to move up, continuing to improve, go up by 3 games
There's
this year.
Continuity here.
Exactly. So, and you also win 3 more games than you did last year, but also in a lot of the other games that you lost, had a chance to win them. Talk about the Florida game, Texas game, Tennessee game. A lot of those games you could have won. So it's not that in those 7 losses that State got beat very bad, and most of them State played with them. So I think a lot of these recruits believe in Jeff Lebby. I think State did a good job of also, recruiting skill positions. Got a good couple of wide receivers to commit to Mississippi State as well in this class. Did a really good job of those. Those guys have been committed to State for a little bit, at least a couple of them have been. State did a good job. Also flipped Micah Nickerson, linebacker from South Pike, down in my neck of the woods down in South Mississippi. Flipped him. He had been, I believe, committed to Missouri for the longest time. So,
right.
Had a good couple of flips from some Power 4 schools. I think flipped a guy from Nebraska, flipped a guy, I believe, from Michigan State, Florida State. Also, you had the Auburn and the Missouri flip. So, State has had some better recruiting classes in its past, right, in terms of rank-wise. I believe on the 24/7 class, State is 26th as of this point, December 3rd as we're shooting this. So at 26th at this point, and also in the Rivals ranking, State is, I believe, around 30th. So State has had some better classes in its past. But in terms of how this class has been able to come together, it's been really exciting to see this class, take its shape. I think a lot of these guys flipping, see maybe the vision that Jeff Lebby has for this program. It'll be exciting to see where he takes it. And I'm excited also, too, for when the portal comes out because, like I said, State does a really good job recruiting skill guys. They've done it over the past couple of years, or over in Jeff Lebby's tenure here at Mississippi State. The important thing is just recruiting inside and recruiting those trenches.
No, I agree. And then you look at those close games, and one of the things was I like, well, that's how you're going to lose big recruits when you have those close games. But there's certain recruits that look at those games and say, what if I was in that game? Would I be the person to get State over the hump to actually win those games? And I believe that's what a Womack is looking at, what a Nickerson's looking at. I believe these guys are like, okay, well, if I was in that game, maybe I could have been a game changer for that. And you got to have guys like that. And I believe the culture, everybody's trusting Lebby. It's a good look for Mississippi State. You got to kind of look inside, see what you have to fix on your coaching staff, I believe is another big thing that you could do. But until all that goes around and we get to the transfer portal, we will keep you up to date, especially when we get back from the semester. But we move on. We go to basketball. We start with our women. They're 7-1 overall on the season. We'll go through. We kind of missed a couple of weeks, so we'll go through, talk about some of the scores, and then see what has happened in the past couple of weeks we've been away. So you lose, you go to at Texas Tech, you lose 69-62, and then you go to the Emerald Coast Classic in Niceville, Florida. That's pretty nice right there. You beat Alcorn State 65-51, and you beat Middle Tennessee State 69-47. But then you look at this past Sunday, the Lady Dogs won 66-54 over the ULM Warhawks. So we look over this period. How do you think State's been able to play and take care of business over this period we've been out?
So I'm going to give you a lot of information here because I got a lot written
go ahead.
down. So just for me, just in terms of, and I've called a lot of these ball games now outside of the games that State has played on the road. I've called a lot of them. So I've been able to see Mississippi State's women's team a lot this year, called the Louisiana Monroe game. Look forward to calling the Pitt game and the Charlotte game upcoming this week. Want to go back to the Texas Tech loss, and then we'll look at and see what I had, for the team overall. State lost that game. What was it? 69-62 was the final score in Lubbock. They lost 31 points. They scored in the first quarter and only one turnover in that first quarter. Over the course of the rest of the game, State only scored 31 points and turned the basketball over 21 times in the ball game. 15 of those turnovers that State had in the ball game were in the second half. State actually shot it better than Texas Tech in the second half, but Texas Tech had, I believe, around 14, 15 more shots than Mississippi State did due to the turnovers. So, Mississippi State had just really, and it's been like this season, State has got a good offense. I think they have a good offense. They shoot at a 46% clip from the field, at a 36% clip from three. Both of those numbers top 50 in all of women's college basketball. Scoring offense is 73rd nationally. That's not too flashy, but State's still scoring at a pretty good clip. But again, the kicker is turnovers are killing Mississippi State this season. They did that last season. That was State's issue last year, was turning the basketball over, and they had some good offensive output, but they just turned the basketball over too much. State turns it over around 17 times a ball game. That's 181st in the NCAA and last in the Southeastern Conference. So that's something that you can look at that Texas Tech game and be like, that's our issue. And you can look at it all season too. The only issue with State's offense has been just turning the basketball over. Outside of that, State's been able to score really well. You look at just overall, just in the middle of things, rebound the basketball. State does a good job of doing that. Rebounded the ball, a margin of plus 11. That's 24th nationally and 6th in the Southeastern Conference. And keep in mind, SEC is really, really good this year in both women's and men's basketball. Defensively for Mississippi State, I think they've been pretty good. Haven't forced as many turnovers, but I believe that State's also, when they're not forcing very many turnovers, they're still getting teams to play quick and forcing not as good shots from opponents. State 54.8 points allowed per game. That's 36 nationally, 8th in the SEC. Again, that's 8th in the SEC because the SEC is so daggum good this season. So now keep in mind, these aren't necessarily great teams, right? Aren't necessarily great teams that State's played so far. But, Connor, I can't fault them for handling their business. And they've done that, except minus, the Texas Tech game. But in what they've done this season, I think they've handled their business against teams that they should have so far. Just talk about players that have played well. Madison Francis has been solid, both offensively and defensively. She's top 5 nationally and first in the SEC in both blocks and blocks per game. I think Favor Wadozi's been good with 3 doubles this season. Good to have Sinai King back. There's also been some other offensive outputs and defensive outputs that have been good for State, just as in terms of just player-wise. So there's kind of a lot. I told you I had a lot of information coming. There's kind of just what I've seen from State. It's an offense that's good that's good shooting the basketball, scoring-wise. Turnovers have killed Mississippi State, but outside of that, they do a good job rebounding, and I think they've got a pretty good defense this year.
And when those turnovers happen, you limit the opportunities for your offense. It doesn't matter
you stress your defense.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if you get 31 points in the first quarter. You had 2 that second quarter against Texas Tech. That's a really big hit. If you had a little bit, you only lost by 7 points. So you kind of give and take those turnovers. You say, hey, well, we don't make as many. We have a different ball game here. We could be 8-0 on the season. And turnovers has probably been the kryptonite as well for the other Mississippi State team as well.
You just play so well, though, is my thing in that first quarter against Texas Tech with the 31 points scored and only 1 turnover. It's just a shame that you couldn't have that same kind of output, maybe at least for just one more quarter in the ball game. Just couldn't replicate the output that you had in the first quarter. Arguably, probably the best quarter on the season for Mississippi State, but they can't replicate that, and they fell to Texas Tech. Nice to see the Bulldogs, though, sweep the Emerald Coast Classic and also defeat Louisiana Monroe this past weekend.
Yeah, that's good to see. There's a lot of good to come from this team. Hopefully they can kind of round off their edges, but we move on. We preview the 2 games coming up this week on December 4th. That's Thursday. The Pittsburgh Panthers come to town for the annual ACC-SEC Challenge. Of course, State has the home court advantage, but they're playing a struggling Pittsburgh team, 6-4 overall. That's either at home or neutral site. They have yet to play an away game this season. What do you think State chances are against this Pittsburgh team?
I think also, too, to mention Charlotte as well. I believe, they're 4-5 on the year so far.
We'll
That's
get to
the
that.
Sunday game. But, yeah, so Pitt, they're really, really struggling this season. I think State's got a really good chance to beat Pittsburgh. Pitt, a loss to D3 Scranton. Shout out The Office, by the way, the show The Office. Shout out to that. Losing to D3 Scranton, they lost at home as well. They have struggled this season. You mentioned no road game for them this year. I expect there to be a pretty decent crowd there at the Hump for Mississippi State. This is a women's team that I think is going to be pretty good this season. I think State's going to fare really well in that ball game. Hopefully, again, it doesn't come back to bite me. But I think State's going to be okay in that one, and I think they should take care of Pitt.
I agree, and we'll see what happens there. This is probably Pitt's biggest test of the season, away game against Mississippi State. But we go to game 2 for the week. It's another home game this Sunday against Charlotte, like you said earlier. Another struggling team, though, Ty, 4-5 on the season, 1-2 on their away games. Charlotte's also had their fair share of SEC competition for their first game of the season. They lost 71-58 to Auburn. So how do you think Mississippi State's going to handle business against this Charlotte team?
I think State will still be okay again. Charlotte, like you mentioned, struggling. Both of these teams, Pitt and Charlotte, are struggling. I think you just don't make it too big for Mississippi State. Don't make the moment too big. I think you'll be okay. Continue to play your brand of basketball. Got to cut down on the turnovers. I think that's something that State's probably going to live with this season. Just because we're a little bit deeper into the season now, and the issue is still there for Mississippi State. I think State's going to have to live with that, but it'd be great if Mississippi State could cut those out. Overall, though, I think just State's probably too talented for these two teams. I think State's going to be able to win the basketball game and win both of those against Pitt, and like we just were talking about Charlotte. I think State should be okay and hopefully move to 9-1 as we near SEC play. A couple more out-of-conference games to go, but getting close to SEC play.
Well, 9-1 could be the overall for Mississippi State women's basketball, but we go to the men's, who's 3-4 overall. They're under 500, but we look at the scores, just like the women's. We look at the scores for the weeks we've been away. At home, you win against Southeastern Louisiana 75-68, and then you go to the Hall of Fame Classic in Kansas City, Missouri. You lose to Kansas State 98-77, and you also lost to New Mexico 80-78, a really close game. For the 2 home games you played last week, you beat New Orleans in a close game in overtime, 81-78. Then you had another overtime game against SMU where you lost 87-81. So the weeks we've been away, you kind of had a lot to cover for the women's. I'm sure you have a lot more for the men's. What have you noticed? It's been a little heart-wrenching to watch this men's team kind of get their chemistry going and did try to get the ball rolling for the season.
Yeah, these past 2 games, at least the SMU and the New Orleans game, yeah, definitely heart-wrenchers, gut-wrenchers, whatever that saying is. Both overtime games, State able to win the game against New Orleans with a late second Amir Ali 3, and then State just unable to come up with a win against SMU in that one on last Friday. So overall, just what I've seen, I think State can score at a decent rate, around 80 points per game, but they turn the ball over too much. And also,
I knew that was going to come.
Their field goal percentage is also not good enough to overcome these turnovers as well this season. State averaging 13 turnovers a game. That's 229th in NCAA men's basketball and 13th in the SEC. So that's one thing. Offensively, same like the women's team, turning the basketball over too much. You're scoring at an okay rate, but you're not taking care of the basketball. I'll get to that eventually, Connor. Overall, too, don't really think State, just objectively from what I've seen, don't think Mississippi State's been as physical as they should be inside. Only a +1 rebound margin on the season. That's 213th in all of college basketball and 15th in the SEC. In a bunch of these ball games, Mississippi State has really been bullied on the glass. You look at the SMU game, lost the rebound battle 50-40, I believe, but for SMU in that ball game, had a lot of offensive rebounds and scored 22 second chance points. Those are huge for Mississippi State to allow offensive rebounds like that and also allow SMU to convert. That was big in the ball game. So, really struggling to rebound the basketball, struggled to do that. I remember against New Mexico. New Mexico did a really good job. And also, too, when you look at those 2 games as well, you had in turnover-wise, you didn't turn the ball over very much in those ball games at all. I believe under 10 in both of those games. Now, you had a late turnover in that New Mexico game that ended up losing it for you. But overall, in the ball game, you did not turn it over very much. But you get out-rebounded, and you allow some second chance points to be scored by both New Mexico and SMU, and it really, really hurts you. Defensively for State, we seem to just overall, in my eyes, Connor, I think we've seemed to have lost that defensive identity that Chris Jans brought to Mississippi State and has had over the past couple of years, past 3 years to be exact. State allowing 81.3 points per game on the year. In every one of their losses, they've allowed over 80 points. They are allowing those 81.3 points per game, 312th in college basketball, 15th in the SEC. So, it's just, State has been okay offensively, but turning the ball over too much and then rebound the basketball, they have struggled, and then also defensively have struggled too. So it's been tough for Mississippi State to get really a lot of positives going on the season. A couple positives have been Josh Hubbard has played well, 4th in the NCAA and 1st in the SEC in points per game with 23.3. I think Jay Nepps has been playing well, but you gotta hope that he can stay healthy. Quincy Ballard and JDF and then Amir Ali have come on as some guys down low. So a couple of those guys have played well, but there's just a lot of overwhelming negatives on this team for State so far this year.
And I agree, but we look forward to the preview. We preview some games, and if there's any games that are must-win for Mississippi State, it's these games coming up. But you look at it. For the men's ACC-SEC Challenge, you go to Atlanta, Georgia, and you play Georgia Tech. So the game is actually tonight. As we're recording, I believe the game is on right now. So we'll see how that game's going. But once you leave A-Town, no matter what the score is, if you win or lose, you have to look forward to Sunday because you play in T-Town. So San Francisco travels to good old Tupelo, Mississippi against your Mississippi State Bulldogs in the T-Town tip-off. So this team is 5-3 overall. So you got a better record than you on the season. But if you beat Georgia Tech, you have a chance to go above 500 this season, which is it's needed. You need to go over 500 this season. How do you bring that to fruition?
Gotta take care of the basketball. San Francisco's got a solid defense, allowing 69 points per game. You got to take care of it and shoot the basketball as well as you can. Get Josh Hubbard and hopefully Jaden Epps, if he can be healthy, active. But, Hubbard needs to be knocking down some shots, so we need to have some guys on the interior play well and make some shots inside for State. Also, got to watch out. This is not a great matchup for Mississippi State in terms of rebound the basketball. On the year, San Francisco's rebound margin is +8, and I talked about State's earlier is +1. So State's going to have to find a way to use their big SEC bodies inside and get some rebounds. It's going to be huge in the basketball game. I think overall, too, offensively, San Francisco has been pretty good this year. 77 points per game, 47% from the field, and also 39% from three. That's 25th in the NCAA. So, San Francisco has been solid this year. One thing that we can look at too, State's maybe can take advantage of. They foul 18.5 times a ball game, so maybe State can get to the line. Also for San Francisco, 4 guys with over 10 points per game, so a lot of their stuff is spread out. Overall, this is a good basketball team, has been good in the past. Ty Golmon, that coaches at Florida, who just won a national championship, came from there. So San Francisco has a rich history in basketball. So it's going to be a tough game for Mississippi State. San Francisco does a lot of things well. State overall this season they've been struggling in a lot of different departments in terms of just playing basketball. So it's going to be a tough one for State. The Georgia Tech one will also be a big game as well, so we'll have the score for that. Our producer Tanner Davis will put the lower third in for us and have the score. But, just looking at San Francisco, going to be a tough one for Mississippi State. But like you said, important that the Bulldogs win this thing because you're getting close to SEC play and you have a net ranking that's around like the 170s. That's not where you want to be right now. So State, important that they win these next 2 games and hopefully can continue a streak into Christmas.
And in these must-win games, you got to limit turnovers. You got to hit your shots, really from the charity stripe as well. And you got to, what's our motto? Take care of business.
Take care of business.
So we got to do that. Hopefully we can get that happen while we're away. But that's going to do it for us. This is our last episode for the semester. Remember, we'll come back and hit it hard and get it going when SEC play comes in the middle of January, just about when we get back here. But again, my name is Connor Davis. Alongside me is my co-host, Ty Golmon. This has been the Bulldog Breakdown, Episode 7, presented by the Bulldog Student Sports Network. There's a lot to be had in this next couple of months, so our next episode is going to be a lot. So stay tuned for that. But we will see you until then. Goodbye.